Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today I'll be discussing one of the prevalent beliefs of the multiple intelligences introduced in Chapter 12. Today I thought I would follow my mentor strategy by not just uploading my auditory information, but as well as my visual face to aid you when it comes to this content dissemination. Overall, this is going to be a very short video, but before I jump right into it, I need to preface this by talking about the early model of general intelligence to help you better understand the implication of the multiple intelligences. And even better, it will be wiser to watch the overall highlights discussed by Dr. Sinet before watching this video. The early inquiry of intelligence began with the debates whether or not intelligence is just a single faculty, or it should be divvied up into multiple components. Charles Spearman, the name that you should be familiar with if you've taken statistics, used what was at the time a quite advanced statistical method to determine that most intelligence tests could actually be broken down into two separate components, which he called the general intelligence, or G, and specific intelligence, or S. And here, general intelligence is the quality that varies across individuals, but stable in an individual. On the other hand, specific intelligence is the fact that it varies across individuals and also within individuals across the different domains. And in Spearman's model, G and S have a hierarchical relationship. Different specific bits of intelligence vary within an individual, but they all ultimately be dependent on and limited to G. And this analogy is somewhat outdated now, but Spearman thought of G as representing the overall total mental energy available to an individual, while the individual S's were like an engine running on that energy. So if you have specific skills like French, math, physics, music, or statistics, all of them will still depend on your overall level of G. And while specific intelligence can be shaped and developed by the environment through training and education, general intelligence is essentially fixed, determined by your genetics alone. And now the concept of general intelligence remains the most widely held, but there are other models out there that are worth taking a moment to discuss. And two prominent ones are Sternberg's successful intelligence, which he characterizes intelligence in terms of the individual's computational abilities, and Garner's multiple intelligences, which he argues that there is no such thing as G. There is no single factor that underlies all intelligent behavior, but instead, there are multiple independent intelligences reflecting different skills and abilities. So in general, multiple intelligences posits that there is no underlying ability common to all intelligent activity, and instead, it depends on multiple intelligences, each specific to skills and domains. And for something to count as a distinct intelligence, it must have symbol system for its representation. There should exist an individuals with isolated exceptional skills like in that area, like prodigies, and there should be a distinct developmental time course for that intelligence. And Garner's original list of intelligence included musical, bodily, kinesthetic, linguistic, logical, mathematical, spatial, and interpersonal intelligences, though this is not intended to be an exhaustive list here. And if you've ever been asked whether you're a visual learner, auditory learner, hands-on learner, these are echoes of the Garner's theories. And they do feel intuitively right. We often think of ourselves in these terms. I mean, it provides a nice way to highlight and celebrate our differences in our abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. But the downside, unfortunately, is that there is essentially no evidence supporting these ideas. There isn't really any data supporting the idea that there are independent intelligences, rather just specific intelligences as Spearman originally proposed. And all of these supposedly distinct intelligences are correlated and underpinned by G. And likewise, the concept of visual, auditory, kinesthetic learners, and so on, has very little empirical support here. I mean, individuals have preferences, but when you compare learning outcomes, it doesn't actually make any difference in how you teach people. Ultimately, we all have unique skills and abilities. We have preferences, idiosyncrasies, and chance variations in our experiences that are going to influence how we devote our mental energy and what skills that we are going to train at. But at the end of the day, these abilities will trace back to G, or our general intelligence. And this leads to interesting implication that people should stop thinking of themselves as either visual, verbal, or some other kinds of learners. I mean, even if you do, it's not like anything terrible is going to happen to you if you buy into those learning styles, but there are not any benefits to it either. I mean, if you think about it, everyone is able to think in words. Everyone is able to think in mental images. Everyone has a toolbox of ways to think. And people may have different preferences, but when learning something new, it is more important to focus on the materials instead of thinking about which tool is the best. Because the fact of the matter is, different learning styles might help you learn about yourself, but it might not help you learn, at least according to the current empirical evidence. So with that grain of salt, I hope you found this video to be useful for your final exam, but as always, let me know if you have any questions.